Everybody, thanks for tuning in. You are about to listen to an amazing conversation with my dear friend, Bryan Hurd, coming right up, where we talk about frequency, emotions, our past, present, and future selves, and how everything that we need is right in the present moment. Bryan also runs men's retreats. We try to become better versions of ourselves for an inward compression, for an outward expansion. Bottom line, check out Bryan Hurd's website, myevolutionproject.com. It's in the description. Now let's get into our interview. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sparks of Gratitude podcast. I am your host, Randy Sparks, and you know it, gratitude can change and save lives, and we are here to have conversations about people's triumphs, tragedies, and how gratitude plays a part. We have a special guest today, my dear friend, Mr. Bryan Hurd. Welcome to the show, Bryan.
Randy, I'm fired up.
Yeah?
I love that intro.
Well, good. I just kind of made it up like as I went.
So what I was going to share to you before we started, I had a friend of mine, Paul Burkobin. Shout out to Paul Burkobin right now. He shared this thought with me once, and I kind of started to adopt it more in my life. And he said, everything, that I need is present in this moment. And he says, I believe that. I believe that the muses speak. And when I come into a situation, I already know that everything's present that I need in that moment. And I've started to approach my life like that, and it's kind of fun. And so everything's present in the moment that we need right now, Randy.
Right now. We don't need anything else. So tell me more about that. Why does that mean so much to you?
Because I'm cerebral, right? So, it's human nature. Like coming to a podcast, I believe. I mean, I've been on a few podcasts now. There's a level where it's like, I want to add value to people's lives. I want to share a little bit about me. I think podcasts are a great method to not only share a message, but also open people up. The more that I can see someone, usually the more I like them. The real person. That's what I want to see.
And how do you know that you're seeing the real person?
I don't. My hope is that I'm gonna lead that way. I'm gonna show up and be me. And I give you permission to be you. All of you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea of you can't control how somebody else is going to show up, but you can control how you show up, and you offer yourself in and you lean in, and then we wait to see who else does.
Yeah, and the reality is think of it, let's go negative way with that, right? Let's say they choose not to. Well, I didn't leave anything on the table. High probability, though, that that's going to make them feel safe and that you're actually going to have the real conversation, which is what we hope to have today.
I hope so. Are you ready to lean in?
Yeah, well, Randy, I don't ever feel like I lean out with you, especially.
That's true. I think so. I think we've shared enough really sincerely meaningful experiences together.
Totally.
That it's all out there.
Yeah. No mask.
Yeah, no mask. Well, we're going to have to talk about what in the heck you mean with that mask.
Sure.
So, Bryan, now that we've kind of started with something deep, I love that quote that you kicked this thing off with.
Isn't it cool?
I love it. This moment is what matters. This moment.
And everything you need is present in this moment.
And everything you have is in this moment.
I'm going to drink some water here.
Yeah, I'll drink to that too. Ooh, you can hear it. You could hear it in the microphone.
Mine's flat, but Randy's is bubbly.
I've got some bubbly water. So, Bryan.
Yeah.
Other than that quote, what is getting you going right now today?
Yeah.
What's motivating you?
Well, I've always been a purpose-driven individual. Connect me to purpose, and I am an eternal optimist. I wake up on Monday morning, and I'm ready to take on the world. Friday, I'm ready to go to the weekend. Just kidding.
Friday, you're ready to hibernate.
Yeah, Friday, I'm ready to go just recharge.
You're an eternal optimist until Friday.
Well, I just kind of feel like the world needs optimism. World needs gratitude.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, right now, what's real for me, I've really been studying a lot about frequency, emotional kind of spiral dynamic kind of concept. It's really fascinating to me. We bring about what we think about. True. Right? One of the reasons I love your podcast so much is because gratitude is a high frequency.
So talk about frequency. What do you mean when you say frequency? We've talked about this before.
Sure.
But kind of lay that out for people listening.
Yeah. I love when the East meets the West, right? So there's a lot of concepts that are out there that are, I would consider it like an Eastern philosophy, right? Read things from Rumi or Buddha or Gandhi, right? And it kind of feels like kind of more spiritual context, right? The West is kind of like the brain side of it. It's the cerebral, it's the how to, right? It's the progressing towards something to be bigger kind of thing. And the East is kind of like just be. That's enough, you know? I feel like right now in the world, the East is meeting the West. Very much so. Very much so. COVID did that. So when I talk about frequency, let's just talk about emotions, right? Curtis kind of hits on this.
Yeah, Curtis. We both have had Curtis on our podcast.
Yeah.
Curtis Morley. If you look back, a few months ago, we had Curtis Morley on our podcast, and he talks about this concept called counterfeit emotions. And
Let's give a shout out to Curtis.
yeah, shout out Curtis. We love you. We miss you.
Love you, Curtis.
And everybody, if you don't know who Curtis is, check him out. Look up counterfeit emotions.
Yeah.
You'll find him. We'll put it in the comment or in the description too.
So let's just talk about emotions that we could feel. The spectrum of emotions, right? In a day, right? We could feel sad. We could feel happy. We could feel angry. We could feel frustrated. We could feel in judgment. We could feel, courage. We can feel willingness. We can feel acceptance. We can feel joy. We can feel love. We can feel peace. We can feel gratitude. Now, right there, I just said words. Just said words. However, I guarantee you, emotionally, you just felt those words.
Yeah, and I even went back into I felt that a little bit today, and
Totally.
I'm thinking of an experience, and those chemicals are moving in my body
100%.
right now. And they were kind of going a little crazy because we were going from, joy to pain to the all at once just by you reciting those. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. Lowest frequency. Lowest frequency is what? Randy, you know this.
Lowest frequency is despair,
Shame,
despair,
yeah,
misery,
right? That low frequency, right? Highest frequency,
peace,
gratitude,
joy.
gratitude, love, right? So there's this hierarchy to emotion. Now, what I think there was a long period of my life where I just was, regardless of how I was actually feeling, I was committed to, I would only let myself feel a bandwidth of emotion. Because if I felt too good, in my mind, I was thinking, this can't last forever. And if I was feeling really crappy, I didn't like how I felt that way. And so it was kind of distract me out of this, or stuff the emotion, not feel it. But the reality is every emotion has a gift to it. We go through things, we don't go around them. And if I am able to sit in my emotions, there's a lesson in that. And usually what I found is it's not the first emotion, it's what's behind that emotion and then what's behind that emotion, right?
Yeah, so talk about that, about what's behind that emotion. Why because we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And you've confronted me with that or kind of prompted me to think deeper about, what are you feeling? What don't you want to feel? Or what's behind that emotion? And,
right.
And ask the next question.
Yeah, so let's say right now, let's do an exercise right now. So if we were, everyone listening on the podcast right now, you're listening to this, I'm imagining you might be driving in your car, maybe working out right now. Maybe you're, got some time before you're going to bed. Subscribe. Please subscribe. Can we do a subscribe right now?
Yeah, do subscribe. Before you do this exercise. Yeah.
So just check in with yourself. Take a couple deep breaths. And just kind of be. What I like about breathing is breathing will turn off the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex is kind of what I kind of think of like the wall, right? And I only did a couple breaths, but, I would say take 5 or 6 deep breaths. I like to use smells with it. So I like to use an essential oil. I really love peppermint. Peppermint's a very awakening sense for me. And it's also like a priming motive that I use, right? Because I'm using my senses to attach to exercises. So breath, smell, right? How I feel. So take a couple deep breaths in and then just kind of sit there and maybe think about your day. Think about just how your day went. Think about these emotions. Think about times when you felt agitated. Think about times when you felt maybe some fear, some anxiety come up. Had a hard conversation you had to have. Think about how you felt after you did something that you needed to do. That sense of accomplishment. Think about how you felt when you kept your word with another person, with yourself. Now, what I'm doing right now is I'm priming people to sit and think in an emotion. So I'll give you something that I've noticed about myself. So oftentimes when I'm sitting in a new environment or I'm with people, right? I'm human. Turns out I'm human still, Randy. Very much so. And it's not uncommon sometimes when I'm sitting, in a room or something and someone's talking about something, there's a level of judgment that I'm putting on the conversation. Is that really true? They really do that? they really mean that? Have they actually gone through the process of actually feeling what they've actually said? You know, it's all like internal dialogue that's happening with me. I'm like, oh, Bryan, what are you doing right now? Oh, I'm judging. Okay, well, what's behind your judgment, Bryan? Well, it's definitely not curiosity. So what's behind your judgment? Oh, you're trying to protect yourself right now. Okay, well, let's sit with that for a second. What are you actually trying to protect yourself from? What is it about this person or what they're saying or what they're sharing that's triggering something inside of me right now? Oh, well, you don't like when you do that. Oh, okay. So what's the actual thing that I'm doing right now? Oh, I'm actually just judging myself through another person. Oh, okay, cool. Well, what would be the opposite of judgment? Acceptance, curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll sit in that. What would be curious about this? What could this person teach you? Even if the reality is like, I think most people are good people. I truly do. And if we actually, take time to sit with someone, get to know them, take off our mask, we find out we're a lot more like everybody than we think we are. And this is not a gender or race or religion thing. The truth is, I think it's just a human experience, right? So it's not the initial emotion. It's everything behind the initial emotion. But most people, what they do is they feel the initial emotion, double down on it, which is the shadow, actually preventing them from learning the lesson of whatever the situation might be. Yeah. I know for me, a lot of what I'm doing is I'm trying to protect my beliefs and my ego. That's what's actually happening. And anytime I know that I'm trying to protect my ego, there's definitely some treasure to be found if I can sit with it. But this is all, this is the human experience.
Yeah, and it feels scary to do that, right? Because your ego wants to be right.
Yeah.
It's trying to keep you safe.
Yep.
And by surrendering, that is taking a risk of maybe being hurt, admitting that we might not be right.
Yeah. All prefrontal cortex stuff we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is all fight or flight. This is all running from saber-toothed tigers emotionally.
Yeah. And so this is all in the conversation of this frequency, right? And so we're going through this exercise.
Way to bring it back. So we're going through the exercise. So we take a couple deep breaths and we sit there, and I would encourage you, right? So we've taken our breaths. Let's do a couple. Let's do 3 deep breaths. We got time. Okay, on the count of 3, we're going to take it in. 1, 2, 3. Breathe it in. In through the nose. Hold it. Out through the mouth. I really want everyone to do this right now. It doesn't matter where you're at. You can do this. Let's take it in again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, last one. So let's go. Let's take this big. And I want you to breathe into your belly. I don't want you to breathe into your chest. So put your hand down on your belly. 1, 2, 3. Breathe it in. And what's happening right now is, I'm basically telling my body, hey, it's safe. It's okay. Be present. So I ask, going through your day, what are the emotions that you felt today? What are the experiences you had directly where you might have found yourself in a lower level frequency, right? Now, here's what happens in lower level frequency. It's usually us being a victim. That's how you know it's a lower level frequency, right? It's passing the buck. Because you triggered me. Did you really? No, right? It's everybody else's fault. So when we start to take a personal accountability, we actually break a threshold. And that usually happens when we have courage, willingness, courage, accountability. That's when it shifts. And then we start to say, okay, I'm owning my emotion. And now here's the question I ask people. You've identified the emotion. You've sat in it. You've bred with it. The question is what's behind that emotion? Or a question I like to ask Aunt Randy is, what's the feeling you don't want to feel? Because that's what your prefrontal cortex is doing. It's trying to keep you alive. But anymore these days, we're not running from saber-toothed tigers. We're actually just being bombarded with social media, the endless game, right, of comparison.
Comparison, expectation. It's all out there.
It's all out there. And by the way, it's relentless, right? Like when we were growing up, Andy.
We're the last generation that grew up without the internet.
Yeah. So it's like when I went to bed, when I stopped hanging out with my friends on Friday night, I went home and I went to bed. No text messages, no, scrolling mindlessly on Instagram or social media. I just went to bed. And I woke up the next morning and, started my day.
Mhm.
No longer the case, right? Because if I can't sleep, scroll on Instagram, right? That's always accessible. Give me some dopamine, create some judgment, comparison, whatever you want to call it, right? Feel good about people commenting or liking what you said. But the reality is that like actually robs us from resilience in the work. Randy, it's the 3-year I'm going to do this with no judgment. I'm going to do the work. I'm just going to show up. I love the idea of like, dude, imagine if people just went off social media for 6 months. I mean, if you want to have fun, look on your phone right now about, your phone tracks how much time you're spending in these things. So everybody thinks they're way less than they are. So like I was looking at social media, I was like 8 to 12 hours a week, but I didn't think I was 8 to 12 hours a week, right?
Wow.
Now compound that. Let's say it's 10. So if I'm on social media 10 hours a week, 4 weeks in a month, let's just make it easy, 40 times 12. Now we're at 480 hours a year. Divide that by 24. What are we talking now? Like 5 divided, 20 days. I spent 20 days in scrolling mindless land, Now, I don't think it's all bad, Randy. I don't think it's all bad. I think there's goodness out there. And I think it can be a great portal for goodness. I think it's just mindfulness. It's your life. It's my life, And so it's like, I realize, sometimes this is like my world. This is how I think. This is how I process my life. I realize not everybody thinks like I do. And that's great. That's totally great. I've experienced life in this way that's like the toothpaste is out of the tube. I can't put it back in, and I choose not to. I actually want to live an engaged life.
Is that what you mean by the toothpaste is out, where you've gained some new awareness?
Yeah, like I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. What's in the past? I mean, that I don't want to go back. I choose to be in this space,
And what space is that? What does that mean to you?
Aware, present, engaged. I don't like the word authentic as much anymore. I feel like it's a little overused.
Yeah, you want to hear something interesting about it?
Hit it up.
I had a genius on my podcast. I'm going to shout out someone else, Nathan Tanner.
Hey, Nathan Tanner. Shout out to Nathan Tanner right now.
Yeah, and check out the podcast we had with him.
Oh, recently wrote a book.
Yeah, recently wrote a book called The Unconquerable Leader. Also check that out. Very good insights and actionable steps to become better.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the word authenticity.
Ah.
And he says that he does not like that word authenticity in some sense. He says that there's a way that maybe it's not used in the most productive way. And that is, I want to be my authentic self.
Yeah.
I want to live my authentic life. And he says, well, what if you're a 12-year-old and you're being authentic to yourself? Do you want to continue being a 12-year-old when you're 13, 14, 25?
Yeah.
No. So instead of being my authentic self, it's move forward with authentic growth, because I don't want to be the same tomorrow that I am today. I want to be a better version of myself tomorrow. So it's that authenticity in improving who I am now. So anyhow,
I think of Ricky Bobby. It's like,
there's your inspiration.
And he goes, with all due respect. And then he just says whatever he wants to say. And she says, Ricky, you can't say that. And he goes, but I said with all due respect.
Then fill it in however you
Fill in the blank. Say whatever you want after that, dude.
Be as awful as you can.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So, I mean, I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say is that I enjoy how I'm experiencing life right now. I enjoy all of it.
Okay, I'm going to call out something in case nobody's noticed in the conversation so far with Bryan. There's something I pick up on in how he's explaining things. You keep saying, I this, and I feel this, and I am. Why do you speak like that?
Thank you for noticing, Randy. Appreciate that. I do that because I want to own my story.
And what would be the difference?
A lot of people speak for the group, but the group doesn't necessarily identify with that.
And what does that look like?
So I'd say like, hey, Randy, when you wake up in the morning and you're having a great day, or you wake up in the morning and, oh, you just don't feel like it that day? You could. I mean, that's not totally out of context, I guess. But it's basically any time that I'm pushing my experience or emotion onto somebody else.
In a general
broad sentence, I just don't believe in it, because immediately in my mind, without even someone saying, I'm saying, you do. I don't, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And until we create that level of awareness, there's a level of, also too, it sounds like preaching sometimes. And what I found is through direct experience is how we learn. Intellectually, I could convince you, or really smart people could convince us of a lot of things intellectually. We intellectually know things, but I don't think life is meant to be lived in my head. There's moments. You ever had that moment where you're in nature or you're in just an incredibly beautiful place, right? You've traveled quite a bit, and you go to take it. I love this scene in Walter Mitty. They're on the mountainside, and he's been sitting there forever to take a picture of the snow leopard, which is the ghost of the hills, right? And he's sitting there, and they have this great conversation, and the snow leopard comes out for a frame, and he looks at it, and they look at it, and he doesn't take the picture. And he goes, I just wanted to enjoy that moment. There's been times I've taken out my camera to take a picture. I was just in Alaska last week. There were times I took out my camera, and I went to take the picture, and I was like, this actually doesn't capture this experience. It gets parts of it, but there's a smell that I'm experiencing right now. There's people that are here with me right now that I'm experiencing this right now. There's a dialogue inside of me through direct experience. And I think if people had more direct experiences, they'd be more engaged in their life, and there'd be a higher probability that they would take action to create a higher level of consciousness and change in their life. That's what I believe. Mm. Let's go have more direct experiences.
And coming back to the I statements, kind of speaking in I statements, you're owning it to say, and not saying, when you feel like this, and how people X, Y, and Z.
That's right.
It's like, flip that around and say,
no, when I feel like
I feel like this, and when I wake up in the morning and I felt, all of a sudden it flips that, and suddenly it kind of locks me into an awareness and confrontation and ownership of
how did I feel,
my feelings, my thoughts, my accountability, my presence.
So talking about frequency, going back to frequency, right? What's the shift from low level frequency to higher frequency? The next phase of frequency is accountability. Low level frequency is victim. Next level frequency is accountability. Highest level frequency is what I would call transcendent state. Mm. What I would call states where it's like we're breaking through, like a barrier. Like we're having, it's the moments. Like if I asked you right now to think of moments that when you think of that moment, it's emotional for you. I think of my children being born. I think of when my first child was born. Chandy has the baby. She did amazing, by the way. And shout out to Chandy. Love you. We have Camden. I'm sitting there. She's kind of sleeping. I'm holding him, right? I'm a father now. That changed me forever. I was holding my son, and I remember the thought that went through my head is, there's no going back now. You are a father, Bryan. And I remember thinking, this child is half of me. He literally is half of me. And I have a sacred responsibility to be this child's father, and to be a husband for that woman over there that just sacrificed herself, right? Took herself all the way, physically, right? To birth this child. That's a moment of a high frequency. I felt love. I felt joy. I felt peace. I felt angels, sacred. That's high frequency, right? Mm-hmm. Now, can I be in that state all the time? Probably not. I'm still human, Randy. I still lose my temper. I still get frustrated. I still have anxiety. I have fears, I have disappointment. I probably even feel guilt and shame. I do.
Yeah.
And that's part of the human experience. Congratulations. You're living it. You're living your human experience.
Right.
Congratulations.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the party. You're out of the matrix now.
And if you own it, accept accountability,
Yeah.
awareness of that. Now that's how we move up that.
Yeah. There's all these like little trite sayings, but I think they're like valuable in the sense, but it's like that which we resist persists kind of concept. It's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. So what's the feeling you don't want to feel? Let's sit in that for a little bit. Let's go there. I call it like dark shadow theory. It's like
Bryan, the therapist.
Yeah, it's like, let's walk down the path. Let's see where it goes. You know what I mean? Because when I can sit with the dark parts of me, guess what else is usually behind those dark parts? The brightest parts of me.
Yeah, and what's the saying about what's in the cave?
Yeah, dude. The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek.
Yep.
Joseph Campbell. Shout out to Joseph Campbell.
There you go. Hero's journey.
Love that guy. That guy's a legend, man. Lots of themes in your podcast around that, by the way.
Definitely. We talk the hero's journey, moving through those fears.
Totally.
And on the other side, let me tell you a story actually the other day that I kind of had where I broke through an intellectual moment and came through something clicked, but in my heart and awareness.
The journey, the 1,000-mile journey.
The 1,000-mile journey from here to here.
Yes, Randy.
I was actually, a friend was guiding a meditation. And it was brief, maybe 20 minutes, and took through this journey kind of talking about and identifying fear and feeling that. And then at some point in this journey, we were invited to kind of observe and see fear as an object, like our own fear as an object.
Yeah.
And I saw something that was actually not frightening. I saw something that was comfortable. An image, an object that was something very comfortable and soft, saying, here you're safe.
Yeah.
And what I believed and learned from that experience was, when I'm looking at this side of fear, it's saying, don't look on the other side of this curtain. You are safe here. It's trying to protect me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But it's also it's also keeping me from seeing the treasure on the other side of that fear.
100%.
Right. And I just found that so odd that the fear was in that moment, fear manifested itself to me as something comfortable that said, no, you stay here. You're comfortable. You don't want to see that. But then on the other side of that, if I break through it, it's like, oh, there's my lesson. I am now at a new level of awareness. I've gained the treasure, and now I can, move on and be a better version of me.
And high probability that will present itself again.
Yeah.
You just have a different framework to go through it now. Because the reality is that's been presenting itself for probably a long period. I mean, how much energy is spent with the average human being? And this is by design. I'm asking this question. How much time do we as a human species spend trying to not feel the feeling we don't want to feel?
Right. It's exhausting.
Dude, whole people's lives are built around this.
I never do that, people. I never do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. We're on the podcast.
Maybe you guys do.
That's right. We're above everybody. I'm talking to,
No, I'm something that I learned the other day too that kind of like shook something for me was I realized that I have created, this is where we can get into masks.
Let's go.
Okay, let me hold for a second, and I'm going to bring this in, but will you explain the concept of masks to me, and maybe even the exercise that we've gone through with masks, and then I want to talk about a new mask that I have realized that I've been wearing.
Totally. Shout out to my friend Joe Spearden. Joe's introduced me to this concept, and I loved it. So this concept of mask is essentially, right, we all wear masks. So a mask is something that I would define as a personality trait, a character that we become in a certain situation because, fill in the blank. Ultimately, it's usually protecting us from something. It's usually because of an expectation we have around someone. It's usually, it could be a lot of reasons. But what I would tell you is I know I'm in a mask when I'm filtering, And it's a really interesting concept because it's like, what am I? Well, I'm trying to protect myself from whatever. So we wear these masks and we go through our life and multiple masks. And the exercise is essentially saying, why do you wear the mask? What's behind that? What is it giving you? What would it look like if you didn't wear the mask? You know, this is an exercise we do at the Evolution Project.
Right. Check out the shirt.
Check out the shirt. Thank you. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to show people that the armor, the mask that you've been wearing has served a purpose at this point in your life. But ultimately, we want to create a safe enough environment where they can take off the mask, take off the armor, take off the heavy load, and just try that on for a minute and see what their life would be like on the other side if they went back into their life and they didn't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. And what are some of the masks that you maybe wear yourself or have worn, or that you observe men when they go through this exercise describe the mask that they might be wearing? To kind of illustrate further to people listening.
Yeah, most common mask that I would tell you, I hear men say, humor is for sure a mask. It's a great deflection. Another mask is imposter syndrome. That is almost privately universal. And the imposter syndrome is if people knew who I really was, then they wouldn't like me.
Yeah.
There'd be recourse to that. So the imposter syndrome is I got to keep faking it, because if they really knew who I was,
yeah, I'm going to be found out.
they're going to, it's just a matter of time.
Now I'm going to jump in because this is the mask.
Yeah.
So I know, and I've been for years, literally years, saying out loud to people, to my wife or close people to me, that I'm the poster child for imposter syndrome. Like I just
want to embed this. Sorry, well, I caught myself, Randy, because we're keeping
this PG.
We're keeping it PG. Thanks, Mom.
I've been in the justifying to myself that saying I'm being aware by calling out that I have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And relying on that, like, oh, I noticed that I have it.
Well, isn't it funny? You even use the mask to actually like stay in the mask.
Yes. And that's exactly what I've been doing for a long time.
Yeah. Because it's not even like an unaware mask. It's like, oh, I'm very aware.
Yeah. It's like I've got the mask on, but then I just wrote with Sharpie on it.
Yeah.
I have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But I didn't take the mask off. Totally. So anyhow, I felt that, like, oh, I'm going to be found out. Like, you know, I'm just Randy. Like, why would you listen to me? Like, whatever my version of imposter syndrome is.
Yep.
And I suppose it has been helpful for me to identify, like to call out that is something rather than to just feel it inside, but to identify it. But then I've just relied on having identified it for so long and not doing anything about it. And just saying, oh, I have imposter syndrome. And I'm trying to not feel it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get away from it. It's that whole fear thing. I'm like, oh, you're safe over
What's
here.
What's the feeling you don't want to feel, Randy?
Yeah, and I don't want to feel imposter syndrome, and so I'm running from it.
Yeah.
Well,
but by the way, look at how creative your mind got.
Yeah.
To identify it and then keep it on.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that wild? Yeah. This is all happening on a subconscious level.
And convinced me that I didn't even know that I was doing that.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's only recently, again, through meditation and breath work, but all of a sudden I had this clarity come to me that the imposter syndrome, that thing, if I were to identify it as an object and kind of stand back and look at it, right? It's all feelings, it's all emotions inside. But if I were to be able to do that, it's not something for me to walk away from, but it's actually an indicator to me that I am on the right path, that this is the invitation.
Yep.
That is the invitation. And I am to take its hand.
Yep.
And I'm to walk with it.
That's right.
Because of course I feel imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Because
I'm in a place I've never been.
That's right. Because you're doing so, you have crossed a threshold.
I've crossed a threshold. It's the evidence that I'm trying to become something better than I once was.
Well, and the fastest way to crack it is like go public. Like walk into those scary parts and start to go public. That is very revealing. Like everybody knows you have a podcast now, Randy. Not only that, you have a great podcast. And I'm not just saying that. Like you've done a great job. And now there's a level of like expectation of like, all right, and I guarantee you there's a voice in your head like, can I keep this up? Right? You know, like I like this is the voices, like untethered soul, right? It's the what does he call it? The roommate. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the human experience, Randy. What if the roommate was your higher self actually leading the conversation to like the next right? This is that concept of past, present, future. We are always onto ourselves. I so believe that. And I just believe that the highest level that someone's going to take action is when they know it. So it's like you're talking about this. My imposter syndrome led me to, I'm right on the right path. And I got to keep going forward, you know?
Yeah, I love that. What if the roommate were my future self? Let's talk about future self for a minute.
Oh, yeah, baby.
I was listening to a podcast with Jimmy Carr.
Freaking Jimmy Carr. When is he going to be on your podcast?
Let's put it out there in the universe.
Jimmy.
Yeah, let's get you on here.
Dude, by the way, I didn't realize, though, that guy's like legit. You know, comedians, I think they get a mask.
Mm-hmm.
We just think they're these funny guys. That dude was deep.
Yeah, he's really deep, really intentional.
Yeah.
Very admirable, doing the work.
Yep.
There's so much that I could learn from what he's done, and he's learned from other people. And he's doing the work, right? And which is exactly what I'm attempting to do.
Yeah.
I'm inviting someone on to help teach me something.
You're doing it.
And then do it, right? But he started, and I think this was, I've watched multiple podcasts with him, but the conversation was about, you know, what do you want in the future? What do you want 5 years from now? Where would you like to be? Or 20 years from now, where would you like to be? What would you like that to look like? And he framed it so differently that was just so potent. And he says, well, if that's what you want to have a spouse, a happy spouse and some kids. He says, well, number one, you can't have that, but you can yourself own yourself.
Yeah.
And create the space that could influence, but own yourself, show up.
By the way, go back to emotions and frequency.
Yeah.
What did he do?
Yeah.
He took it from a victim. Because if it doesn't turn out that way, what's the thing? I did all the work. No one changed around me. Wah, 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 wah.
Mm-hmm.
Resentment.
Yeah. And that all comes because if you've set the expectation that something outside of yourself is going to be a certain way.
It's going to make you happy.
And then when it's not, now I'm pissed off. I resent it and so on. But however, if we flip that upside down and act in gratitude, gratitude and resentment are opposite each other.
Totally.
Right? So this conversation with future self, let's go into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, if I want to live a healthy life. I want to be sharp in my old age. Mm-hmm. Well, I can have that. My today self can give that gift to my future self. Mm-hmm. Like we're on the same team here. Yeah. Like if I want future Randy to have this, to feel, or to influence how he may feel, that's like, oh, well, that means that I exercise every day. Mm-hmm. That means that I write in my gratitude journal every day. Yeah. That means that I behave like this today, now, in this present moment, because it's what I have. And all of that is a gift to somebody who I love and I'm investing in.
By the way, isn't it awesome full circle moments right there? Because everything we need is in this present moment. It's such I like to think of this like, what are things that expand my heart? What are mantras? What are beliefs that will expand my heart, that will open my heart? The head to the heart. And by the way, it's not an exclusive path. It's not like I'm getting out of my head, so now I'm all in my heart. It's actually just union. It's union and realizing like God's given me a capable, beautiful brain, and God's given me a lion heart. Let's go experience life. And let's have both at the table and give both a voice. Experience, boy. Like, do you see how what you just shared about your imposter syndrome mask was a call from your higher self to do the work that you needed to do?
Yeah. I believe it is an invitation from my higher self, my future self.
Yep.
To say, hey,
it's time.
It's time. Do you want to be better? Do you want, I've really been focusing on this and I think I've told you about it. I write in my gratitude journal every day a little note to my future self.
Yeah.
And that has allowed me to visualize that person exists, and I'm investing in that person.
Right. Let's give a shout out to Walt Disney right now. You heard that guy before?
Yeah, a time or two.
Can we get him on the podcast?
I may or may not be going to Disneyland in a couple of days.
Of course, Randy. Of course.
And by that, I mean I definitely am.
I definitely am.
By the time this is published, I might have gone even another time.
Randy, I'm going to throw out an idea that I just want you to like sit with. Dude, what if you invited all of your guests on the podcast and did a 1-day Disneyland excursion and just threw it out there and said, if you've ever been on the podcast, let's go. That would be an amazing experience, dude.
That would be amazing.
I'd sign up for it.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Why would you sign up for it? Maybe tell about our little adventure.
Oh, because it was freaking great. It was...
we had this idea. Bryan calls me one day and he says, hey, Randy.
Adventure Quest.
An adventure quest. He says, I've been thinking about this every now and again. Sometimes you just need to get away, go have a little adventure.
That's right.
Sometimes that might be getting outside, getting in the woods, doing something. Just get away for like 48 hours.
36 to 48 hours.
36 to 48 hours.
Heals the soul.
And he says, he calls me and he's like, do you want to do that? And like as soon as possible. And he's like, what if instead we go camping? He knows I'm just this massive Disney fan. He's like, would you do Disneyland? Because Bryan isn't the Disneyland fan.
Yeah, I'm not. It was
not
actually,
into it.
By the way, it was curiosity.
Yeah.
I said, of all my friends, you are the one that is most committed to Disneyland. And I said, I want to experience Disneyland like you experience it, because my narrative around Disneyland, I'm the guy that's maybe one every 4 to 5 years because of my kids, but it's not like, it's like, oh, we're going to be standing in line and it's going to be hot and it's really expensive. And I hope they get some good memories out of it.
Yeah.
Which, low frequency, by the way.
And so what did we do? We planned it.
So we planned it.
Said,
And it was
right,
actually, it was like
full send, we're going to do it.
It was like 3 weeks.
Yeah, we did it pretty quick, and I would have done it sooner, but that's how we did it.
Yeah. So we go down there, awesome experience, and I experience. So one of my favorite things to do, right? Direct experience.
Yeah.
And when I can have direct experience with a guide, with someone seeing something through somebody's eyes that has a passion for it, dude, you want your world to open? Go find people that are interested in things that you want to be interested in and like get a seat in their world. It's fascinating. I love to do this with my kids. Best advice someone ever gave me raising kids. Find out what your kids are interested in and get really interested in that. So I've been interested in theater and swimming and cars, flipping cars, by the way. Roston's flipped a few cars. High five to Roston. And tennis and golf and soccer and food and travel and, you know, like all these different things because my kids love it. And I'm like, I'm going to get fired up about that. I'm going to experience their life through that. I'm going to go to Disneyland with Randy.
Yeah, it was just the two of us, you know, mid-40s. Yeah. I'm closer to 50.
It was.
And we're like, let's go to Disneyland. Two dudes
going
just
to
together.
Yeah.
You know, we as much as Bryan wanted to, we didn't hold hands and skip down Main Street.
That's right.
But I would have if you asked me to. Yeah. But it was fun. I took him and I said, let me show you Disneyland.
Can I tell you one of my favorite parts of that whole thing?
Yeah, tell me.
There was multiple, but I loved Cielito Lindo.
Yeah, we went to our favorite place in East LA.
That was cool. Great way to start it.
Yeah.
I loved all the intricacies that I would have never known, like Genie Pass, the strategy behind it. Like we packed in a day and it was wonderful. Coolest part is when you took me to the Walt Disney Museum, and this is where I'm coming back to the Walt Disney thing.
This is by Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. They have some things on display there and like plaques and things like that.
And there's a park bench.
Mm-hmm.
And that bench is the bench that Walt Disney sat on as he watched his kids swing on a swing. And he had his first thought of, I want to create the happiest place on earth.
Yeah.
Like the power of a moment with his future self changed the world.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, he is long gone. His legacy is living on. And, right, Disney is being Disney.
Right. And you know what he was? He was a man who would dream and do it. And he would quote things. He's known to say something like, sometimes people just won't see what you see, and so you just have to build it so they can see your vision.
Yes.
So
I want to reference this past, present, and future self. You ever seen the movie The Kid?
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
Okay, so
fill it in.
I mean, it's like a psychology lesson in a movie, okay? So essentially, Bruce Willis, I'm going to mess it up, but I'm going to do the best I can here. How are we doing on time, Randy?
No, keep going.
Okay. So essentially, Bruce Willis like has this experience where he's himself in present day, but he gets to, this kid comes into his life and he quickly finds out the kid was actually him. And he's experiencing the life through the kid. So I think he goes back in time somehow and he's experiencing this kid. And he's this man in his present self, but he's guarded and he's kind of cynical on life. And he gets to be with his kid, and he is his future self to his kid. And there's this, dude, it's emotional. There's this moment where he finds out like his mom dies. I think she dies of cancer or something. And his dad just doesn't know how to deal with this. His dad's probably going through all these emotions, right? Emotions. Just lost his wife. And he did something at school that day. I think he got in trouble or something, you know. Anyway, his mom dies, and the dad comes out and just freaking rails him and says, like, basically, like, I don't know if he said, like, you killed your mom, but, like, he makes him feel pretty freaking horrible. He doesn't know how to process all his emotions. He's this, like, you know, blue-collar guy trying to do the best he can, losing his wife, having no idea how he's going to raise these kids, and in a moment of weakness just unloads on his kid. But that was a core memory for him. And the part that's emotional is he's watching himself in that experience as his present self, and it breaks him because he is him. And he goes up and he consoles his younger self.
That's powerful.
It's like that is life, because everybody's had an experiences in their life that have created core moments, beliefs, agreements that they have made, and then they move forward, right? This happens to men a lot. Like, they just shut down. They go, I'm not going to open myself up. And sometimes it's something that happened a long, long time ago. So anyway, he consoles himself. It's just a beautiful moment. Like, they captured it so perfect. And then at the end of the movie, they're at this diner and they're eating there, and all of a sudden this dude walks in with a dog, and they both are like, wait a second, we wanted a dog always. And then the dude leaves and he gets in a plane and like flies away. And they're like, that's our future self. And they're freaking pumped. That is such a great context. It's such a powerful visual. Like, I highly recommend everybody, if you're listening to this podcast, if you've made it this far, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And subscribe. But like, go watch that movie now and like open that up to yourself to feel, because that's the beauty of the gift. Most people, what happens is we have a set of experiences we've experienced in the past. We're living our life presently. We consult our past to predict our future. And there's very little growth in that, because the prefrontal cortex, right? This lizard brain is trying to prevent us from dying. So when we consult our past, it's like, dude, Randy, last time you did this, you failed. It sucked. It hurt. You don't want to look stupid, right? So what do we want to do? Protect ourselves.
Put on the mask.
Put on the mask and say, dude, the last time I did this happened.
Stay here. It's comfortable.
I'm not, or
we're safe.
Yeah, exactly. And we double down, and then people look and they say, my life hasn't changed much in the last 5 to 10 years. It's like, yeah, it hasn't changed because you've been in a dialogue with an old version of yourself that, you know,
that's locking you within these bounds. Another one of those sayings that you say, you know, they're kind of trite and simple, but they're powerful and means that, you know, this is that. What's the one they say? You know, a ship in the harbor is safe.
Yeah, but that's not what ships are made for, baby.
Right.
That's right. So it's like, get out on the ocean, fail, go get disappointed, go try something new.
Right, because it's not about, the failure is important. Failure is a good sign.
Yeah.
It's about resilience.
I mean, dude, we were just talking about kids up there when we were talking with Kathy and your wife. So I have a little 4-year-old, soon to be 5, Anders. Shout out little Anders, dude. I love you. You are my little Buddha. Gift from God. Literally, best gift I never expected in my life. Little Anders. Dude, that kid just has like a childlike approach to his life. He feels his emotions. He's loving. He learns new things. He wants to show me. He's so excited. And like, my thing is like, dude, I want to keep those things in him as long as I can. I want to be just his biggest advocate. And I want him to just keep loving and just living big and just, I know he's going to have his heart broken, and I know he's going to hit disappointment, and I know he's going to meet people that are going to, you know, create doubt, and, you know, he's going to have life. But until he does, man, I want to build that kid up and just let him know he can do anything that he sets his mind to. And he is just the most beautiful perfect child. And children are. They are the gift. The children are the gift, man.
Okay, Bryan, this has been amazing.
Yeah.
And now with this conversation about past, present, future self, about Anders, how much he inspires you as your little Buddha.
He's my little Buddha.
Before we end,
Yeah.
I want to end on 2 questions for you.
Hit me up, baby.
And I stole these from someone else who was on the podcast, who stole them from someone else.
Do you want to give him a shout out?
I want to give him a shout out. Chester Elton, thank you. And Chester stole this from Marshall Goldsmith. But the idea is, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. It's actually a bigger exercise, but I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
Okay.
Before we're done. Maybe take your breath.
I'll try to actually answer the questions, Randy.
Number 1, what would you say, how would you express gratitude and for what to your younger self?
Do you want me to sit in that, or do you want me to answer that? Or you want to answer both questions? How do you want to do this?
Well, you can sit in that and answer that. In fact, if you pause for a minute, we'll just edit it and then go straight to your answer.
That's great. Wonderful.
So what if you gave some gratitude to your younger self?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Dude, when you talk about just a loving, emotionally resilient person, I just think I just had a never give up attitude. I never was, like, for example, in sports, I never was the best. Not, clearly, right? But I just tried really hard, and I just worked really hard, and I just believed, and I had awesome mentors and coaches that gave me enough, because they, like I think people don't understand how valuable the right words at the right time from the right person of encouragement mean. So grateful. And that kid, Bryan, that was Bryan. I was going to find the gift in everything.
And he created you.
Yeah. I love that guy. Like, dude, we talk about this like past, present, and future self. I kind of view my life now. One of the things that I've really conscious about is, like, I think of Jesus Christ as my friend, like somebody that I would hang out with. Like when we're doing the Evolution Project, like I literally am like, yeah, dude, he would be here right now.
I believe that. I believe he wants to be right by our side.
Yeah.
With us.
Yeah. And I think it's, it's like I look back in my life and I just sit there and think, I've just been really blessed. I'm very blessed and lucky. I have 2 parents that showed me love and discipline and hard work. They love me unconditionally. They've supported me through everything, always. Biggest fans. I had grandparents that were amazing. Like I can legit say my grandparents, specifically, like my grandpa was like literally one of my best friends, I think of my wife. I think of, her parents and family. I've just been blessed with awesome friends, and all poured into me so much. They've poured into little Bryan, and I've seen the hand of God in my life continually.
I love it. Okay, now let's turn the question around.
Yeah.
And say, what would you say to your future self?
Dude, like, be courageous and fear not, Like, take everything. I think of God basically saying, like, take everything I've given you, trust me, and just keep going forward.
Beautiful.
Like, it's going to work out just great. Just don't stop. Don't give up. I'm right here. Ask me for help,
And what do you think he'd say to you?
Oh, that's what I think he's saying to me. And then if I think of asking me for help, he's like, there was a couple of years ago, Randy, and I know we're tightening it up here at the end, but I had this moment where I was like, do I trust God? And initially I was like, of course I do. What a dumb question. But then I started to observe my life, and I'm like, well, the way I live, I don't know if I'm actually living what I say I do, right? I was like, so do I trust God? I'm like, probably not a ton. I trust him to the point where I think I can still do it. And then I was like, what's the real question? I'm like, I want to. So what would it look like if I just started trusting God a little bit more in my life? And that is where I believe it goes sacred, right? That's where that higher vibration kicks in. 12-step program. The first step of the 12-step program is to surrender to a higher power. I have done my life to this point, and it's gotten me this, and I surrender. But people think, oh yeah, that's for the 12-step dude. That's for the dude that's life is completely fallen apart, or the woman that's life is completely fallen apart. Bullcrap. That's a human experience. And I just think that's when life, right? that's when it becomes an immersive experience. And I'm just walking through life with Jesus and God and these beautiful people he's put around me. And I'm in a conversation with them and life all the time. And life is beautiful. All of it. Because everything that I need, Randy, say it,
is in this moment.
It's present in this moment right now. Amen.
Breathe, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bryan.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to this moment. Remember that, this moment.
Amen.
See you next time, everybody. Thank you for listening.